You are listening to CraftCast, the podcast, where soul meets craft. All right, everyone. Whether you're ready or not, we're back for another session here with podcasts with my dear friend Patrick Cusick. We have a fascinating guest on today, Ms. Abby Glassenberg, from you're the president, you started it, the Craft Industry Alliance. Did I get that right, Abby?
You did.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
perfect.
All right. So my first question to you, that I was talking to Patrick about this, how do you come up with the idea and start that? What made you think, I know what the crafting world needs, and this is it?
Yeah, it was a long journey. It wasn't immediately evident. So I started out as a craft blogger, I think like you. And
Okay.
yeah, so for a long, long time, so from 2005 to 2015, so ten years, I was a craft blogger. And I started my blog just to sort of record what was happening during nap time when I was home with our first baby. And, I had been a sixth grade social studies teacher and then all of a sudden had a baby and found myself home and found out about craft blogs and thought I could start one and just was like, oh, during nap time, I'm making origami and planting a garden and doing random things. And like figuring out how to take pictures and upload them to the computer. It was like a process at that time.
Yeah.
So I did that for a long time, and it really developed into a blog about sewing stuffed animals and dolls, which is what I enjoy sewing. And it led to a business fairly early on. So I started in May of 2005, and in July of 2005, Etsy had just launched and it was still in beta, and I started selling them on Etsy. So it became a business within like a few months. I didn't know anything about business. And as I said, I have a degree in education and in history. My undergraduate degree is in history, and just hadn't done anything business related before. So I had a lot to learn. And in the process of writing that blog, I got lots of cool opportunities. I got to write some books and do some licensing, and kind of came to see that there's a whole side of crafting that consumers don't necessarily know about, which is the business side of crafting, like all the companies that make all the products that are in the aisles of your craft store, and all the contracts people have to sign, and you need insurance and all this stuff that I didn't know anything about. And so I started kind of pivoting my blog to write less and less DIY sewing content and more business content, because the blog was always about following my own interests. And sharing those in words and pictures with other people who might have the same interests. So the blog sort of started to be more business focused, and I started a newsletter that kind of sent craft business news out to my subscribers, and that was a lot of fun. And I was looking into creating a paid version of that newsletter. This is before Substack and before it was easy to get people to pay you for a newsletter. So I was looking into it and trying to figure out how to do it. And then a friend of mine, she had actually been a guest on my podcast, reached out and said, hey, we should start a craft business conference together. And at that time, I had 3 little kids. And I was like, I can't even go to a craft business conference, much less found one. Like, I can't even leave my house. So we started talking, and I was like, I'm trying to do this paid newsletter situation. And anyway, in those conversations, we sort of thought, well, maybe what we could do is make a trade association, because then it would be all business education, but it would be online and it would be available to everybody all year long. And all the existing trade associations, of which there were a few at that time, this is 2014 when we were having these chats, there were a few of them, but they were all really about a trade show. So when you sort of joined, what you really got was a ticket to the trade show. And we're like, well, we won't have a trade show. We'll just do all the other stuff, covering the news and trends and, doing education, professional development for craft business owners because she had also been an eighth grade social studies teacher. So we had that in common. We both really like teaching and education, and we'll do some networking and kind of do it that way. And it'll be sort of a new kind of trade association. And so that's what we decided to build. And we created a partnership and formed a business entity. And we spent 10 months building a website because essentially what it is a website. So we spent a long time building it in WordPress and figuring all of that out. And, we built like a little landing page, like if you're interested in this when it launches, put your name here. And we had a lot of people interested. So we launched October of 2015. We both put in $5,000 to build the site and get all the stuff done that needed to get done. And we made our money back right away. And as soon as we launched, we had tons of members because there wasn't anything like it. And my partner, Kristen Link, she had a very, very popular blog also. Her blog was much more popular than mine. It was called Sew Mama Sew. And it was a contributor blog in the sewing world. And so she had like 70,000 people on her email list. And, I had my smaller but more business focused email list. And so we started really with quilting and sewing. That was the audience that we had. And then I've worked really hard intentionally to expand out into all craft sectors and create things that inform all those different niches. But that's how it started. It was just an evolution of my own, I guess, interests and experiences trying to figure out how to do this, how to have a craft business.
That's like a walk.
It's a very natural sort of progression, and I think that what you're doing is so important because I think a lot of people will just do what they make their craft that they love, and then they start selling it without any thought of, really making it into a business. And everything that it takes to make it a business is so much more than just
it's a surprise.
The thing. Yeah.
A big surprise. That way, I felt like we did a walk in the past. It was like revisiting. What was your blog called again, Abby, way back then?
So it was called, it still exists. You can still find it. It's called While She Naps. And it was all the things I was making while my daughter napped.
So cute. I mean, remember those days of blogging? Yeah. It's like,
they were great.
Yeah.
No, they were. Low pressure. It was very low pressure. You could post blurry, terrible photos and have these titles for your blog posts that were not SEO optimized in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And it was fine. There were 40 of us. So it was like everybody knew everybody and we were all over the world. And we would send each other mail, like we'd make stuff for each other and send it to each other in the mail. And I mean, it was like a very innocent days of being online.
That's what makes me laugh because CraftCast was a blog at the same time. I did podcasting. Were you ever on CraftCast?
I don't know. I listened to CraftCast for years. Okay. Yeah.
So, and I remember thinking the innocence of what you're talking about. I put a subscribe to our newsletter. I didn't have a newsletter, but that sort of came with your template when you did WordPress, and when I looked down, there were 15,000 people had subscribed, and I should do a newsletter.
Yeah, totally.
It was all crazy how it all, but it showed how interesting work. Carol Duvall was my hero to watch on HGTV.
I used to watch Nancy Zeman back in the day, and I'd be home with the baby. And exactly. We would watch these things on television.
Patrick and I were on TV. We didn't know that. We were both on the same show a million years ago. But it's just, we've come a long way. Well, you do cover so many of the crafts. I'm always blown away on your newsletter, all the different things. Do you... the internet changes daily and it's crazy. Do you see like major big changes right now in the crafting world?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that what happened was we were very scattered, right? Everybody had their own individual home, their own URL. And if you wanted to know what was happening, maybe you had like an RSS reader where that would create a digest for you. But really, if you wanted to comment, you had to go to each person's home and make their, read the posts and make your comment. And there was a very active comment section and discussion, but they were all sort of everywhere. And then it kind of centralized, right? And we ended up with these very few big players, mostly Instagram being number one. And a lot of people's blogs went by the wayside because everybody was in this one central location, right? We were all just on Instagram. And if you wanted to sell things, everybody was on Etsy. So you had Etsy, you had Instagram. It was just became very centralized. And I think there's a level of disenchantment with some of that now where, people are fed up with having to essentially, Instagram, it's not, their priorities aren't your priorities, right? They have their own priorities, and that's very clear. That's been made very clear. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of frustration with Etsy at times as well, for those same reasons. So I think, it's easier, much easier now. The barrier to entry to doing e-commerce, to blogging, to having website, it's so much lower, just because there's all these great tools out there now that you can use to sort of get started pretty quickly and inexpensively. And I think Substack has sort of been proof positive of that, where people really want to share content in a longer form, more lasting way than they can on social media. And in a way that's a little bit less of a public feed. I think a lot of us have been burned by that public feed and that kind of, rewarding of heat rather than light and all of that, where it's just all about anger and people having terrible terrible battles in the comments and attacks and things. And just watching it is uncomfortable. Whether or not it's, you've been the victim of it, just being part of it is sort of just not constructive. So I think people, Substack is a way for people to sort of go back to the old days of blogging, right? It lives online.
Very interesting.
It has comments. It goes directly to your inbox. And I think people are turning to it for a reason, which is and so maybe it's sort of disseminating now, sort of going back out into lots of smaller homes, as we've gotten somewhat, I guess, discontent with the social media.
With the lower barrier of entry that you were talking about, I remember I think I made my first website with iWeb or something like that from Apple, and didn't even know what WordPress was. Today there's AI you could just make a website with AI in a split second, and I think that that's good in a lot of ways, but also it just increased the amount of people who are online who just want to be online just to be online without any sort of purpose or without any sort of real experience in what they're talking about. Because I see so many people, go online. They're like, oh yeah, I looked that up on YouTube, and I did this and this. I'm like, oh, well, that's great, but did you think about this? No, I never thought about that. This person was just, showed it to me online. And sometimes a lot of the information is wrong. I think that people are sort of jaded with what's going on in terms of having to filter through all the information and filter through, how do I get to the right person? And I think that the Substacks and things like that are just, perfect places for people who can just really go in and really start to look at things in a more critical eye.
Well, what you just said, Abby, it felt like we're sort of going full circle. We're 3/4 of the way going back to some of the ways like blogging, like that kind of exchange of information. Like we're coming around again full circle to certain things. And I wanted to talk to you about this. That's what I felt about what's happened with needlepoint. That's gone frigging full circle. And isn't that interesting? And I've been talking to people and owners of needlepoint shops. It's insane. And I know you know this, what's going on with that. All the owners I've talked to give credit to TikTok because younger people are learning that. And I was telling Patrick earlier, I talked to a woman who was in one of the big needlepoint stores. She was in her early 20s, and I asked her why and what she liked, and she said she wants to get away from her phone, and it's relaxing and getting away from that whole social media thing. And I'm like, isn't that interesting after all this time?
And I think that's all part of that same feeling of wanting to take back your time. Yeah.
And and enjoy things that way. Like it's really gone, I think, full circle. I was saying to Patrick, I allowed myself to get stuck into Instagram scrolling. I wanted to experience it. Just keep doing it, doing it. How do I feel? How do I not want to feel? And I get how it's addicting, but I also get how, and now I need to do something with my own hands that's not that, that's more fulfilling.
Yeah, that being said, right, she told you that folks are learning about needlepoint on TikTok. So the digital piece still plays a really important role, right?
Correct.
So it's
Correct.
not as though they're learning about it from a
Correct.
friend. They're learning
Right.
about it online, but then they're going and doing it in person. So it's not like it's going to go away. It's
Correct.
just maybe people have a more intentional feeling about its role in their
That's
lives.
a good point. That and mahjong were the two things in the past few months that blew out of the water. That it fascinates me because they're coming back from the past. And the things didn't change what the people are doing, but the discovery has rehappened. And
Yeah.
I find that really fascinating because it's also making people be with other people doing things because they're now groups where people can sit.
Right.
I go to one at the library and you bring your own needlework and they're doing book readings and different things. I think people have discovered they might need people again, not just their phone.
I used to do this
Yeah.
thing called Stitch and Bitch,
Yeah,
where we would all show up on a Thursday night with a bottle of wine. People had different projects that they were working on, and we would just sit together and do projects together.
yeah.
And sometimes people would just come with just a sketchbook and an idea, and start talking about their project. And it's great to share information with other people who are on the same sort of, the same wavelength
Path.
that you're
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
and they're your commonality of the people, like in metal clay industry, it's like if I teach a metal clay class and everybody's into metal clay, then we can talk to each other about metal clay. And your husband isn't going to think you're strange for talking about metal clay all day long and that you want to do this, right? It's like it's camaraderie is just, I love it. It's really great.
Well, Patrick and I have discovered when we do classes online at CraftCast, like just yesterday, we had people on from Australia, Scotland, always in the UK, but around the world. And I love that people around the world come together because they want to learn and be creative and share. And it's a dopamine high. And
So
that's the best
you're
part.
you're a maker, started off as a maker, and like all of us, did. And what surprised you the most about moving from being a maker to what you're doing now?
I mean, it's still a lot of work, I think in both situations it was a lot of work. The work is just a little bit different. I think you know, so the work previously was kind of coming up with concepts and drawing and then drafting patterns and making many iterations until it came out the way that I wanted it to. And then making the final samples, writing technical instructions, taking photographs of each step, and then figuring out how, in what way I wanted to publish that, and then market it. So it's like a whole cycle. And sometimes that, came together as a book or what, came together as a self-published pattern or a pattern that was licensed to another company, et cetera. So that was the work then. And it still had a fair amount of research involved, and emails and customer service and all of that. And in a lot of ways, it's sort of similar now, except now it's more about thinking about like trends, thinking about what's happening, like looking at needlepoint. The shortage of needlepoint canvas is
I
real.
know.
New needlepoint shops that are opening just to focus on that one specific trend. And then figuring out, okay, what do we do with that? Do we want to write an article about it? Should we have somebody who owns one of the shops on the podcast? Should we, when we are the partner with H&H Americas now, which is the industry trade show. So should we bring somebody to the trade show to talk about this? Like, in what way? And it's still a lot of research. It's still iteration. It's just not in a sketchbook. It's just sort of like, brainstorming. Another difference now is I have a team, which is really great. So I have all these wonderful, talented people who work with me and bring so much to the table that I don't know how to do. And so they come up with lots of ideas and figure out how to make things happen. So that's great because I think previously it was kind of lonely, working. It was a different kind of time because I also had 3 young children. Now my children are 22, 20, and 15. So we're at a different life stage. They're living their own lives, have their own, 2 of them are out of my house. And so I need a different kind of interaction. But I really believe in allowing yourself to pivot and change. I think if I had locked myself into doing what I was doing in 2010 now, I would have quit, and I really enjoy crafters, crafting, the craft industry, everything about it. So this is a way to keep going that suits me now, will it always suit me? It's hard to say, but I think it's important to say to yourself, like, yeah, you may alienate some of your audience. When I made that shift from publishing tutorials on how to make teddy bears to publishing, articles about book contracts. There were some people who were like, would email and be like, I don't really like this, and I was like, I hear you, like, I can, but I have to keep going, and there's lots of other things to read, and it's okay if you don't want to read this anymore.
You have to follow the signs. You make me laugh. I remember when my son was born, all that, what we were talking about. And I was probably breastfeeding, and it was all encompassing when you had a baby. And I'm watching the Pillsbury Bake Off. I don't bake or cook, but I'm watching it, and they say, okay, everyone get your pen to write down where to apply for next year's show. And I took my pen out, I started writing, and I'm like, no. I put it down. I turned off the TV. I'm like, I have to get back to what I was doing. But that was the push that made me realize, all right, no, that's not going to be it. And then you move forward and find the next thing. But now, what do you think? Because I love what you said, that we all know that with the needlepoint and the canvases are shortage. I think it's because there was only one place really making them all those years ago. Well, now they need more, and they haven't recreated the next place where they can make them. But what do you think people need to be paying attention to the most in the creative business of changes? Where do you see that people are missing something that they should pay more attention to?
As far as like what crafts are concerned, or
business end of craft?
Oh,
yeah. How do you deal with the balance of it all? I think that's the thing, right?
Yeah, there's that too.
Because a lot of times artists aren't business people. You know? And so it's hard to do that balance. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for that question, I feel like you just have to say, to block off time on your schedule where that's all you do, because you will just sit in front of the computer all day. And it's funny how we can end up procrastinating from the thing we like most, which is very strange, but seems to be a common human condition, where it's like, what I really like to do is, watercolors. And then you spend the whole day doing other things. And then boom, it's dinner time, and you're like, what happened? Why didn't I do my watercolors? And it was like you weirdly procrastinated from actually doing the work. So I don't know why that happens, but you just have to sort of say, well, you know what, from 9 to 11, that's all I do, and I'm not allowed to open the computer. So
there you go. Discipline.
I think that's just part of setting aside that time and honoring it for yourself. As far as like what to look at, I mean, right now, I think we had a huge blow when Joann's closed. And so that was a massive, and there's still fallout from that. I mean, there were many companies for whom Joann was their largest client, and
good point.
And they had orders in process that were never fulfilled and never paid for. And so their money was tied up in inventory that they couldn't sell. So there was a lot of difficulty that came about as a result of that closure.
Why do you think they closed? What's your opinion about that?
Oh, they closed because they were owned by private equity, and they just squeezed them until they had the last drop. I mean, it wasn't anything to do with the changes and consumer behavior. It just had to do with what private equity owners care about most, which is money.
That's true. And I agree. So, and we've seen that happen with many businesses when it's all that, for sure. I also think, I don't know if you agree with this, that they need places like that need to reinvent themselves too. People forget about the reinventing of a new, fresh look or something to be in the times that I think is important. Certainly, when you're owned by an equity like that, they're not going to bother. It's all about making money.
I mean, we saw that. I don't know if you've been into a Barnes and Noble recently,
I have.
but the Barnes and Nobles now are awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, at least the ones near me, like they closed their large footprint store near me and they opened a smaller footprint store and it's got locally like curated book selection in the front on the front
Yep.
tables. It's really well merchandised. It's adorable in there and it's a very pleasant experience. And, that's obviously a giant, giant chain. And they did reinvent, right? They
Yep. I
invested,
agree.
they had new leadership who came from the independent bookseller world and they figured it out. I don't know, obviously, I don't know what their financials are, but to me, from the outside at least, it
I'm
looks
with
like
you.
a business that survived it. And I agree with you that in addition to private equity or because of it, Joanne never did reinvent
I
itself.
agree.
And so there was a missed opportunity
Yeah.
there. And that it's sad, but as far as how the industry is faring, that was a huge blow. And tariffs are obviously a massive concern. And then now, with shipping and oil crisis and all of these expenses, it's really hard. This is an industry with low margins as it was, so it's tough. So that's that. But I think for our brick and mortar shops, it's a big opportunity. It's an opportunity to bring people together. You're not going to win on inventory. So you cannot compete with e-commerce when it comes to inventory, but you can compete on a lot of things that e-commerce can't provide. And what you were talking about, Patrick, with the Stitch and Bitch, right? Like is like community in your store, impact in your community that you can have, bringing people together, your expertise, being there, and your curation of what's on sale, your eye. There's a lot that you can bring to your local community, and now people don't have. You're not living in the shadow of the big box store. We lost 800 stores in May, and so
Wow.
that shadow is gone, and so there's more sunlight on our brick and mortar shops, and it's a new opportunity for them.
I
So there's
agree.
always positives, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. A new opportunity. In my area alone, there's been the yarn stores very big and opening up, something called creative modern or modern creative. So I see that happening again in a new look, a new fresh look, because people want, the word I hear often is an experience, a creative experience to go in and find something to do, not sign up for, which we used to do, 4 months of silversmithing, but go in for an evening and do something fun and walk away and have a creative experience. Um,
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of that. What other trends do you see? Is there one that stands out for you?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure. I know beyond right now. I hear you on the needlepoint and the mahjong thing,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
kinds of reminds me of pickleball. Back a
Okay,
couple of
yeah,
years
there you
ago, it
go.
was
Yeah, yeah,
pickleball
yeah.
everywhere. I mean, I see a lot of merchandise around reading and like book talk. Lots of crossover, I think, between people who enjoy reading and enjoy books and enjoy crafting and crafts. So there's definitely sort of a sub trend around creating products that appeal to both of those
Good
sectors.
point. Yeah,
So that's definitely that's hot. I think other kinds of handwork, embroidery, cross stitch, those sorts of things. Sasa sewing like with felt. They're really appealing for
they
sure.
are. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I do one of those at night. That's my therapy work. Sue Spargo, who's known in her felting world and quilting, I'm on my like 10th year of doing those at night. And I'm not an embroiderer artist or needle, but I find it relaxing and creative and community, and you share and make. Um, and that's amazingly popular as well, which I love seeing.
And you know
Yeah,
what
and
else
it's
is nice is
color
that,
saturated. It's pretty.
Yes. Yeah.
and that low barrier of entry again that
Yeah.
we're talking about, where you don't need a lot of fancy equipment.
Yeah.
It's something you can just pick up, and if you want to do it, you do it, and you don't have to go out to do it. Like glass blowing, you know,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I think that's part of it.
I think
Everyone's
people are
fast.
looking for it for sure. I think we need it, especially in the world today. There's a lot of stress. And I think that our creative outlets are important, even for people who've never been creative before. They want to go make something and do something. So I feel like we're like going back in time. Certainly the needlepoint and the mahjong. I'm like, okay, what else did we do back then that's going to come back? What is it? Come on, there's something that we
Yeah, I
did.
think it's just important to like notice your own interests and pursue them,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
really pursue them because that's where these new trends come from. Is just somebody who's sort of, I mean, I see lots of people making baskets. There was a time where
Yep.
not long ago where there was lots of people making brooms. That was like a big
That's
trend.
right. Yeah.
Making
I
brooms. I took a basket weaving class not long ago. That was super fun, and
yep.
it was all day, 1 day class. It was
Yep.
awesome. So, but yeah. So I think for those of us who do create DIY content and kind of want to hop on that next trend, I think, and sort of don't know where it is, I would just say like, if you're out somewhere and you see something that's cool that you're like, I could make that, like learn how to do it because yeah, like we create those trends just by like it's like where does desire come from, right? And it comes from seeing other people do something that you
Hey,
like.
see, it's TikTok. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen that. What's
I, by the way,
possible?
love TikTok, and I'm on TikTok every day,
What do you
and
love? What do you love the most about it?
oh, I just love TikTok. I mean, I just got back from England with my son, and we walked something called the Cotswold Way in
Uh-huh.
rural England. And the way that I found out about it was through TikTok. I was on TikTok, and a woman's like, I'm walking the Cotswold Way. And I was like, I don't know what that is. So I watched this whole video. And then, of course, once you watch a video on TikTok, they show you more videos about the
Right.
same thing.
Mhm.
So I
Right.
ended up watching a whole lot of videos about the Cotswold Way. And then my son was like, I have spring break off for 2 weeks. And I'm like, you want to walk the Cotswold Way with me? And we did. And we had a great time. I was totally influenced. So, I just think the way that the algorithm on TikTok works and the type of content that it rewards people for creating is brilliant. And
You
I
know
love
what? I'm going to go back to it because Instagram has gotten so
I
Instagrammy.
don't even go. I hate
I know.
Instagram.
I'm not, well, yeah. I put everything for all of our classes, everything on there, but I hear what you're saying. I'm moving over to TikTok. I put things on TikTok as well. But that's sort of fun when you see something and you write down, oh, I want to do that. And I think that appeals to creative people. You just want to see and go, oh, I want to make that, or what's that, or where'd you go, or that type of thing. Do you post on TikTok?
Never.
Okay.
I don't post on social media in general. We have a social media manager who does all of the posting
Okay.
for us, and I don't. Yeah, I just don't.
Out of all the jobs, which is the one you like the most and dislike the most
Jobs where?
for your business?
Oh, of all the jobs that I do,
Yes. What's the
oh
one
gosh,
that's your
I would
favorite?
say I like writing and reporting the
Okay.
best
Okay.
because
I'm not
um,
surprised to hear you say that. So,
yeah, my mom was a reporter when I
okay.
was growing up for the Washington Post, and then for our local newspaper. So I think I come from a journalist, but and my dad was a lawyer. But I definitely when there's like a good news story that I know the industry would be really interested in reading, and I also know that nobody else knows about it. I really like figuring out all the ins and outs of it, verifying everything, talking to sources, writing the piece in the best way that I know how, and then sharing it, and watching the discussion and debate that takes place afterward. Like I feel like that's what we're really known for. Finding those stories is not easy. And you gotta, you have to have a lot of relationships with a lot of people who trust you. And when they see
Right.
something come to you and say, you
Check
know,
this out.
yeah,
Yeah.
you should know about this. And I'm so appreciative when people do bring
Yeah.
us tips like that.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Yeah. I can see that part. I always enjoy your newsletter. Well, yeah. We have to keep faith and just moving forward and watch the cycle continue. I love hearing to hear the term blogging again sort of makes me go, oh, yeah, I remember that. I mean, we don't hear that term used much, but we heard it every day back then, blogging, time to do the blog. So I loved hearing that again. Who knows? Maybe just straight blogging will come back again too. You never know. But it's yeah. So what are you looking forward to next?
Well, so we're the partner, as I mentioned, with the trade show H&H Americas, and they just opened a second show that will be in Houston in October. So our
Okay.
original show is in Chicago in May. And so I'm excited about that. And we're the partner for that show as well. So we plan all the education that takes place at the show. So all the business classes, the keynotes, the state of the industry panel. I moderate that, and we book all the main stage panels, et cetera. So it's a lot of fun. It's a huge job. I'm excited to sort of rethink what we do for the fall show to make it distinctive from the spring show. So that's definitely on the horizon. And as soon as we get back from the show in May, then I start planning for October. So we'll see how it develops. And it's kind of a wide open question right now. So that's fun to sort of think ahead to.
That's always fun.
Yeah. It's a nice, because prior to H&H, our partnership with H&H, we didn't have a way to gather in person with our community, and so it gives us a place, and now two places to see each other in person, which is really important. And then there's also lots of things I'm cooking up for Craft Industry Alliance, always behind the scenes and exploring, should we do a print magazine? Yes, no, all those things. There's always more things that an organization like ours could do. We just recently started doing new product showcase. So we have 5 of those a year. We just had one this week where we have 5 brands come on that are sort of in the same sector and talk each for 10 minutes and show us their new products, which is really fun. It's kind of like Home Shopping Network. You get to see all the new things that are headed down the road.
That.
So that our members can be in touch with their marketing teams for collaborations and other opportunities, and so to write wholesale orders, whatever it is that our visitors and viewers.
People love that. I mean, we have a CRAFTCAST. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's called I Love Tools. It's a free event. We do them pretty frequently. And at least 5 of my teachers, Patrick's mom many times, and we show off their favorite tools and how they're using them. And I once read on social media, someone said, "Oh, make sure you sign up for I Love Tools. Just bring a glass of wine and your credit card."
I totally agree. On my podcast, I have my guests recommend 3 things that they would recommend to a creative friend at the end of each episode.
Yeah.
And I got that idea from another podcast that is no longer being made, but that I used to listen to, from Boing Boing. And they always used to have their guests recommend things. And I can't tell you, I mean, I would be out for a run and just stop mid-run, pull out my phone and order the book that this guy just, before I forget, I would just order it. And, so, I mean, I ordered like hundreds of dollars worth of things from those recommendations, which is why I made it part of our show, because I was like, I need to know what you recommend. So.
Yeah. Well, plus when we do it, we know that one of the teachers, we've all used it and recommend it. You're not getting something that doesn't work. So it comes with other crafters going, "Oh yeah, this works. Get it here and here," So it is pretty fun. You take other recommendations, but I'm right there with you. Well, tell everyone how to find you, easy way to find your newsletter, because I know everyone's going to want to sign up. It's a fabulous newsletter. I'm just letting you know, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, the newsletter is a roundup of craft industry news of the week, if you're wondering, and it's free to subscribe. You can unsubscribe anytime. Our feelings are not hurt. So you could always just come and try it and see if you like it. It comes out Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern. And you can find us at craftindustryalliance.org, and we're at Craft Industry Alliance everywhere.
Yep. It's great. People do it. I'm just saying,
important.
There's, and lots to read and different things. So thank you, Ms. Abby, for coming on and chatting with us. We've been around a while. We've gone through the blogging to the vlogging to whatever else is happening next. We'll be there. I know that. We like it.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Patrick. It was great talking with both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's chat. You can follow us and subscribe at Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And please take a look at all our amazing video tutorials at craftcast.com.